Hey, gang. Welcome back to Dopes and Opes. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Hyland.
Hi.
This episode is about
Oh.
being a leader and how you can influence your sphere of influence. We hope you enjoy.
Well, being a leader in the front or in the back.
Exactly.
Ah.
Do you have any beginning thoughts about the concept of how you impact your sphere of influence versus because we've talked on the podcast before about
The importance of the sphere of
the importance of sphere of influence, how it impacted me at this time in my life, and how you've shared some moments of how maybe it impacted you. But now we want to talk about how it impacts, how you can actively impact your sphere versus it impacting you, and kind of the importance of it. It kind of ties in a little bit to how we were talking the other day about positive energy and how if you want to have a good sphere of influence, if you actively are putting positive energy into it, you
I
hope
think this
that
is a
it would
great
be.
start right here.
Yeah, I know. We're already going.
Oh, okay.
That's thanks for acknowledging that I've started.
Oh, I thought you were explaining.
Well, that's the new
I thought
thing.
you were explaining this.
No, this is we are live. It's going.
Oh.
That's the thing about now doing the intros after. We just get into it,
I've been off the mark here a couple times this weekend.
It's been anytime we switch things up, it's gonna be a little challenging and whatnot.
Learning curve, for sure.
A little different, but yeah, back to my point.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I think that putting positive energy into your sphere of influence is extremely important. And what are your thoughts initially on kind of how you've impacted a sphere of influence or just the importance of it?
Well, I have as I was listening, I should not have interrupted because I had a great just kind of association in my own mind. I'm at a grade school, primary school right now, and I just have some awesome relationships with some kids, and the amount of behavior referrals and just the amount of kind of situations that the kids have been in and been written up for or whatever has decreased dramatically.
Nice.
And the amount of calmness and just time in the classroom and just the overall positive results that we're looking for have increased dramatically. And I am I'm a lot hesitant to give myself any credit for that. But at the same time, I think
you're having an impact.
Honestly, I've had a huge impact.
Nice.
And I think that's important to I've been working recently on trying to be gracious in the fact that, Hyland, I think you are doing some amazing things. And I think you really do, you are worth the money that you're paid, and you are valuable in the situations where you put yourself. And that's really hard for me to accept. And that's not natural. And that's something that I fight against a lot and that I've always fought against. And I hope one day I'll be comfortable in that. But I think there'll always be a little bit of kind of just hesitation in that. But yeah, absolutely. I think that this is such. Oh, Lance, you kill me when you do that.
It's fine. I can't see anything.
Okay. But yeah, I think this is a hugely important factor and a really important discussion, because I think we tend to think of the world affecting us, and we spend less time thinking about how we actually affect the world and how our thoughts and actions and things like that actually have the impact that they really do.
Yeah. And it's something that once you can become kind of aware of it, it's really nice to see how you are having that impact. Like I specifically have been working at this bar now for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, something like that.
Mhm.
And I really enjoy it. It's been a really great opportunity and just a lot of fun. And it's kind of feels like its own little family. I really enjoy all my coworkers and the owners, and it's just been a very good time. And it's been nice to see how, since I've joined, how I've kind of had my own impact. And one way I can specifically see it is like the music that's played at the bar.
Mm.
So when I joined, all they played was country. That's all they played 24/7. And I'm not hating on country. Country's, a very popular brand of music. It's clean. It's very easy to listen to while eating dinner or kids around. But when it gets to the late night hours, around 10 p.m., I'm like, hey, let's switch it up. Throw out some T-Pain, get some people moving and whatnot. And so I have actively like started to like play my music and whatnot and see how it's changed. We hired a DJ. I'm
Oh.
actually thinking about like working with the DJ to develop some skills so that way I can DJ at the bar, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that'd be super fun.
Yeah, just kind of as like while Sam was, the owner's name is Sam, he was telling me that, yeah, Rowan, if you could do this, that would be awesome because the guy we hire is not necessarily like cheap. And also like, it would also help with just like growing the bar overall.
Mhm.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been, and like I've pitched a lot of like game nights and a lot of trivia night ideas and just a lot of like themes for the bar that have really started to like change it. And I'm seeing how that my actual impact and my input is being taken. And it's really great when you actually can be around people that are willing to take your input and appreciate it rather than being like, hey, that's great, but we're actually going to do this. That's kind of the worst. Then it's like, you're not in the right sphere in my mind.
Yeah. 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 Well, I think, excuse me, for that's also a, whoa, I apologize. That's also, I think, another really, really important aspect of that is when you realize that you actually are having a positive impact, like within your own sphere, or like you see your sphere of impact kind of growing
Mhm.
a little bit. It is a positive. It releases good kind of substances into your body. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel happy. It makes you feel more empowered, and it makes you kind of want to seek out and it's just a continuing return, right? It's like the more impact you have, the more impact you're willing to kind of go after, and it's just a positive loop, right? It's
Yeah.
just something that, and I think that's really, really important because I think that's something that in the world today, a lot of people tend to feel maybe hopeless, or like they feel like I'm only one person. I
Yeah.
can't make a difference. Like the system's totally rigged.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the ability to like change anything. And that's a pretty freaking devastating mindset, right? Like that's going to lead you to some pretty dark places. And like just the fact of taking small steps, right? Whatever they may be. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I had to change the whole like the whole
Right.
bar's ambiance.
It's been something that's gradually happened. Like when I first started, I was very aware, like I am a newcomer into this bar. I actually found out that when people didn't remember my name, they referred to me as Avatar. So
What does that mean?
you ever see Avatar: The Last Airbender? It's an animated show. It's
Oh.
basically a bald kid with a giant blue arrow on his head.
Oh, that's
So-
not nice.
Well, we think of it as a joke.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that's how they would refer to me when they didn't know my name. But as I like came into it knowing like, hey, I am a new guy.
Yeah.
This is a very tight knit group. I am not gonna come in here and be like, hey, what's up, gang? Like I kind of quietly like slowly got introduced. Like I let them kind of bring me into the group, and then I've had
Yeah.
like a nice impact and whatnot. And now I feel very close, and it's been fun. Like one of the great things about getting into a new sphere, I'll say,
Yeah.
is that you kind of get to really get to know people and kind of get to create different bonds with different people. Like the relationship I have with the cooks and backs is very different than the bartenders in front, right? Like the jokes and the way I kind of act with them is also going to be different than how I talk to the girls that I work with up in the front. And it's just been very like unique and fun to like explore those different kind of friendships. And I enjoy it a lot.
Well, I think that's also something that's really important is to be conscientious of how you are interacting within your sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there are different aspects, there are different personalities, there are different segments, right? And you should be very, very conscientious and very cognizant of how you are interacting and how they're reacting to you. Like I am also kind of this is a like I think I'm 6 weeks into this assignment, and I also kind of like when I go into a new environment, a new sphere, I tend to be as kind of invisible at first and
Mhm.
just kind of like let people come to me, and instead of being like I am definitely not going to go up to you and be like, hey, what's up, da,
Well,
da,
that was
da.
my problem. I think I took some lessons from you because I used to be the kind of guy that would overshare because I'm dying for a connection. Because
Yeah,
I was, like in Chicago, didn't really connect with many people. And in Minnesota, I didn't connect with many people. So I felt like, oh, I have to share everything to be like, these are all the great things about me. This is what's interesting. This is what's going on. Let's connect. Like, tell me about you. And they're like, you're a lot. And I'm like, yeah. But now I've kind of like, I recoiled a little bit just to be like, now I get to like little spice of like knowledge, right?
yeah.
Like for
You
instance, like
create the mystery.
yeah. Then like people don't know I have a podcast. They don't know about like my history, like all the jobs I've done where I've lived. So then I'll just be talking, and then they'll ask me like, "Oh, what about you, Rowan? Like, are you dating anyone?" And I can spring in a little bit of this, or like
Yeah,
what it's like. What are your hobbies? And be like, "Oh, I have a podcast." It's more fun to do it that way than to just unload just all of the things that's going on at once.
yeah. Like yeah, no, that I do that. I don't know if I had any impact on that whatsoever or not, but I that's how I do it, right? Like I purposefully keep a lot of things private, and then every once in a while, like at the most opportune moments, like oh yeah, like I spent 5 years in China, and people are just like, what?
Yeah.
And you're just like, yeah, it's not a big deal. And then
Yeah.
like you're just the mystery just like gets super big, and you're just like, what the heck?
Well, what's funny
Who
is
is this
anytime
dude?
I talk to Noah, my older brother, he will say like he has to be the most interesting man in the world when I talk about you because
Oh,
I like he doesn't know much. He doesn't ask me any questions, but I'll be like, yeah, he spent like 5 years living in China. He's like, what?
yeah,
And it's always like shocking.
yeah, yeah. You just kind of like drop the mic moment, and then just
Yeah,
like kind of walk away, and it's
yeah,
like, yeah, it's not a big deal, and
yeah,
people are
yeah.
just like,
Seems like a
"Mm,
big deal.
what the heck, man? Yeah. So, but no, I think for I think this is like a really and this is again another thing that I really enjoy about this podcast is this is not an aspect that I thought of before, but like in that whole chapter, I don't mention anything of being really conscientious of impacting. I mean, maybe I do a little bit, but like
The
in
majority
this,
of the language is more based around how you are being impacted by it,
yeah,
not how you
yeah.
impact it.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like that, like to me, this is a new concept. I'm like, whoa, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's maybe even more important than what
Yeah.
is it's doing to you
But I will
is
add, so like the fourth episode we ever released, it's an emotional one for me. It's about sphere of influence. Great episode. But I chat about my experience on the lacrosse team in college and how like it was my sphere and I was never accepted in it. And it really didn't go well for me. And I had a feeling of like, okay, how can I impact this? And I did make attempts to like impact it in a positive way. And it really like, I was just basically like bouncing up against a wall. And so I
well,
think,
that's an interesting question for
yeah.
me. Is okay. So you might have answered it already, but now having the information that you have now going through what you've gone through, and you getting to this point where you are now, what how would you handle that situation? Would there be any difference in how you handle that situation now? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the question.
Um, so one thing that's happened now versus back then, so like this was like freshman year of college and whatnot. I don't really know who I am. I'm trying to figure stuff
Yeah.
out. Now I'm pretty confident in who I am as a person and what I kind of like value. And I've learned the lessons from all of those like spheres of influence that didn't go well. That I can be like, you know what? Like instead of, if I crack a joke and the group doesn't laugh, it's not because like I had used to think like, oh my gosh, I'm not funny. Like these people don't like me. Like it was very kind of like self sabotage.
Hmm.
And now it would be something along the lines of like, oh, if I say a joke, like, well, if I like it, like I like it. If you don't like it, like that's okay. You're not gonna like every joke that I have. It would be more, I don't want to say defensive, but it would just be more secure. in who I am.
Do you think, looking back, that you would have stayed in that sphere of influence? Like, would you? Because it seems as
It's
though you're much more confident
the
now.
toughest thing for me about that one is because I love lacrosse so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
and I miss it so much that part of it would be like I think I would not let go of lacrosse because of how much I missed it, and I would try and like impact it in a more positive way.
Well, then that begs the question for me is, do you think having the confidence, the kind of stand upness that you have now, would you, like some of the bullying and things like that?
Yeah.
I think like I'm just projecting myself onto you. I think you're just being like, nah, dude, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like, back off.
I definitely think that I would have just a much better much healthier approach to it and not a feeling like cuz I wanted to fit into this group
Yeah, yeah.
because they were like it was the group like I had kind of idealized this team and whatnot, and then just when I got to really know some of the people I was like, oh, this is not really what I like, and now I like, for instance, like with the people I work with at the bar, yeah, in no way are they mean to me. Is there any bullying or anything like that? If anything, I'm mean to them, just because I tease
In a
people
good way.
in
Yeah.
a good way. Yeah, yeah. I'm not just like, "Shut up, you idiot." No, like I'm very, jokey and whatnot. But it's just having that confidence in who you are as a person is huge, and not letting exterior people affect how you feel about yourself is a very difficult thing. But I've gotten to a place where I feel pretty solid in that. It still takes active work. There are things that happen, like in an episode we had talked about when it comes to dating, how it can kind of change how you feel about yourself if someone doesn't find you attractive, or if a
Mm.
date goes bad, or if, she doesn't text you back, you might start to change how you feel. But I've gotten to a much better place where I know how to constantly reinforce myself to get back to the place. And also my sphere of influence is extremely positive. I've kind of taken out all of the negative people in my life, and now I only have good, positive people that support me. Like if I have people that I really can rely on and talk to and know, like for instance, like you're one of those people, like if I was having like a really, really tough time, I could always call you and be like, hey man, like this is the situation. And we could, like hash it out. I got my friend Greg, I got Nick, Alex, I have the people at the bar. I have my family here and
Family,
whatnot,
yeah.
Emmett, Noah. So like I have a nice really like I've really done a lot of work on myself, but not even on myself, but on like the people that I'm like showing myself to and who I'm choosing to be in my sphere. I'm much more selective with now. And I think that was something where it's a very important thing to do because I think people, especially like when you're a freshman in college, you're just trying to get you're just trying to fit in.
Just trying to fit
You're
in.
just trying to find friends. You're in a new environment. You've lost your family. Childhood is over. You feel kind of lost because that's how I feel like everyone felt freshman year. And now I'm like, oh no, like I can be selective with who I have in my sphere of influence.
Well, I'm listening to this and I'm trying to wrap my head around a concept and I'm not quite sure if I'm there yet, but the idea of when you become very conscious of choosing of absolutely choosing your sphere, right? Like you get to belong, you do not.
Yeah.
Like being very aware
Hmm.
in that aspect, and then also being aware of like how you influence and how your thoughts and actions kind of the results that are incurred from that. That is the essence of leadership. And I've never really explored this idea like in my own life, but I'm beginning to think about this because I am looking at myself and at this age I'm finally willing to admit and I'm finally beginning to recognize that whether I want it or not, people listen to me. People respect me. People want me to step up and be a leader in some aspects. And in some ways, I'm willing to take those roles on, and in some ways, I'm not. But I think the fact that I am so conscious of everything that I say, everything that I do, I'm always analyzing like what's going on around me and my contribution and the resulting
Right.
factors from that. That I think like that's what people are responding to as far as like, hey, like we want you to be in these leadership roles, and that's a really interesting concept to me. Like that's something that's just it just came to my head, and it's like, oh my god. But yeah, that's the whole essence of this. As I think the more conscious you are, the more aware and really particular in how you present yourself and the impact that you have within your sphere of influence, the more leadership and impact you will have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about the idea of leadership? So I've actually been in leadership roles, and so like I've had the idea of leadership and respect that comes with it is very important to me, and I've had struggles with it, and I've had great success with it. And so I'll give some examples. So in high school, I was captain of the swim team for since I was a sophomore, I believe.
Oh wow.
Sophomore or junior. I think it might have been sophomore. But so I got to be team captain, and didn't necessarily like swimming, like the act of swimming practice and everything. I mean, it sucked. It's just you're in water all the time. But like what I really liked was the guys on the team. I really liked the communication and the way like we had fun and we would tease each
Mm.
other, and it was like I genuinely like a family. And I had a direct role in how everyone would treat each other and the way we
Mm.
would talk with each other.
Yep.
And I made it very adamant. Like I would get on people. Like if one of our guys were swimming and people were like sitting on the bench just talking, I'd be like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like one of the guys on the team is swimming. Everyone is on the side, like cheering him on, no matter who it is, no matter if
Mm.
it's the slowest guy, no matter if it's the fastest guy,
Yeah.
no matter if this event matters, no matter if this event doesn't matter,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it was super nice, right? I loved that impact. I then got to be captain on the lacrosse team. That didn't work out so well. It was good in high school because I was one of the best players. So like I got that respect just because I was like one of the leading scorers. I, kind of like quarterback the offense and whatnot. And then when I got into college, I had no impact. And I, was not very solid in who I was as a person. And I didn't get to be a leader. And I tried to be. And I just definitely got kind of pushed away. Like, hey man, you're not the guy. You're not that guy. And I was trying to be. And what's been interesting is now that I'm kind of feeling like I'm getting back into a role of leadership at the bar. I'm in talks with the manager of or not the manager, talks with the owner about becoming manager this summer or this spring. And I'll be in a position of like, hey, you're kind of the guy. You're the guy that everyone needs to talk to and ask and is relying on to lead and make sure the ship stays afloat and it keeps going.
Mm.
And I love being the leader. Like I love having people rely on me and like almost kind of need me in a way. That's just kind of it's just one of the things I like. And it's interesting because in the past I wanted people's respect so badly because I never get really respected. Like I've never been an intimidating figure. And you're around my dad who's this demanding force. Right. Like he gets respect in every room that he goes into, like on the fire department, like everyone likes my dad. Everyone respects him. He's never not respected. Right. Except for me. I'll disrespect him every once in a while. But I always like really admired that. And I thought like, oh, that's like, the idea of a man or something that's like, you should strive for. And so I like would always try to be like the leader. I would put myself in these positions of like, respect me like I am the guy. And it never worked. No one ever liked it. And I think when you're cognizant and you're kind of like, I don't want to be the guy, it's kind of when you become the guy.
Well, I think one thing that will be interesting to people who actually listen to this, when Rowan and I met, Rowan was my boss.
Yes, I was actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting just
Yeah, I
dynamic
kind of forgot about that.
in itself, right? Like, that's a clear example of me being
But
like,
don't act
nope.
like you weren't my right hand man. You're my first mate. Anytime I'd be like, Highland, what do we do?
Well, no, but I mean, that's a really interesting dynamic because I didn't want anything to do with that. Like
Right.
I just wanted to be like, okay,
I just show up.
I'm going into the corner.
Yep.
I want to do my, like, don't talk to me.
Yep.
Don't. And Rowan was all in it. And actually you were very, very good at being the leader of the team. But that, yeah, like I just thought of that and I was like, oh, because that is, to me, that's really interesting because you kind of sought that out and you wanted that. And
Yeah.
I was like, nope, I don't want anything to do with that. And I think that's, but in one aspect, like looking back now, I would be, and I think this shows the amount of like help and growth that you and this podcast has given, is I would be more willing to be in a leadership role.
Nice.
I wouldn't take on
You wouldn't be like,
the foreman or whatever.
please let me be the leader.
Well, no, I would not. And I think, like, even looking back now, like our boss Eric kind of wanted me to step up more.
He did, yeah.
And to be like, Highland, I need you to do more. And I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
not gonna do it.
Yeah, you made it clear.
But like, I just think, like, in that respect, I think now if I was in that same position, I would be more willing. I would be more cognizant of the fact, like, hey, people do look up to you. People do respect you. People do, like, you do actually know what you're doing, and you can be very helpful to the team as a whole. And I would be more willing to kind of accept more responsibility.
I just like there's so much importance in who is the leader of your sphere of work or whatever. Like it is so important. Like any issue, anything that comes up, it starts from the top down, right? Some people think like, oh, it's just people at the bottom that are like, this guy has an issue with this person and like they can't work it out. But like if you have a good manager, if you have a good leader, if you have a good captain, they're going to address it and make sure that it's not a problem. And that's why like I like becoming the leader, is because, for instance, like at the bar, and the same thing with like on the swim team, I created an environment that I've really thrived in, and everyone thrived in it as well. Like they felt safe, they felt comfortable, they enjoyed it, they had fun at work. It was a good time. Felt the same way when we were doing construction. And I go, okay, we've gotten to the place where I really like this thing. I want it to stay that way. I think I will do the best job of keeping us in line and making sure that we'll stay the course and like keep the same kind of environment going instead of someone else becomes the leader. Because I was in that with like lacrosse. Like we had a guy that was the leader my freshman year, Captain Mike Julius, he was awesome, right? Like I worshiped this guy. He was awesome. He just was such a good leader. Just like, ooh, he was great. But then as time went on throughout the years, like we got different captains and I was like, you guys have lost it. You guys have completely lost the expectations. You've lost my respect. Like the environment of the team is very toxic. This doesn't work out well. And then I eventually ended up quitting. And so that's why anytime now I'm in a situation where like with Sam and everything, I was like, I have actually sought out becoming manager. Like I did all the things that he is expected to get into a position to be able to do this. And I've been smart about it. Like I'm aware of the way I act at work and the way that I ask questions and how I've shown my qualities and how it's gotten me to the position. So I wasn't just like, oh, I stumbled upon it. Like, no, I actively sought it out. But like, I just want to create the environment. For instance, like this summer, we're going to be hiring some new like bartenders and servers and hostess and all that stuff and whatnot. And the way the bar is right now, it's great. But like anytime you bring someone new into it, it can change the whole dynamic. And if you bring someone new in and you don't kind of hold them accountable to the standard that's going on, they could also like start to change it completely. And like for instance, I'm going to tell you this off of the podcast, but I'm going to have a specific talk with a specific lady when they come back from school this summer about something that happened. And I'll be like, hey, we cannot have this happen. Like that's not acceptable. And just to make sure that the environment stays in a good place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think like there's all sorts of thoughts flooding into my head. And I really enjoyed this part of it. But one, I think if you're not willing to set the tone for your sphere of influence, your environment, then the tone will be set for you,
No.
right? And that might be a person, that might be the introduction of new working conditions, whatever it might be, right? But like being cognizant of the fact that you you really have the chance to set the tone. And I think that's really important in the fact of kind of empowering people is like, oh, I don't have much control over this or that or whatever. It's like ultimately you need to take responsibility for the tone of your work environment. If you're not happy with it, step up. Like
Yeah.
do something to change it. Do something to make it better. And I think another really interesting kind of thought that's coming into my head now is the idea. Is it leading from behind or leading from the back or something? Like I don't want to be in the forefront. Like I don't want to be the boss,
Mm-hmm.
but secretively I will be very, very influential.
Yeah.
Like for example, one thing that I like to do for and even in the way that I think about this, I think of it as my team. And I think I'm a part of the team,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think that that's interesting. I'm like, Highland, where does that phrase come from?
Yeah.
But like I like for the team that I work with, I like to bring in snacks. Like on my I'm only worked like on the last day of the week or whatever, and just to build that environment,
Yeah.
just to like have something for people to look forward to. But like I I don't think that people would say, "Oh, Highland's a leader," but I do think they would say Highland is very, very influential. And if Highland speaks or does something, I will pay attention.
Yeah.
And that's interesting too. And
Well, I think what you're doing is you're doing all the things that a leader does. You're just like, hey, don't give me the mantle. Because like I've done very similar things to get to the point I'm at now. Like for instance, like with some of the cooks, like I sometimes will get food before I come in, and there's been times where I've been like, "Hey, what do you want from Chipotle or whatever?"
Mm,
And I'll buy it for them.
yeah.
And it's just like, "Hey, I'm treating you. You know, we work together." It's showing like a level of compassion that they're like, "Whoa, no one buys me food or anything like that," and it's just like, "Oh, I'm just bridging the gap."
Well, compassion and connection,
No,
right? Which is ultimately super important, right? Because when you're working as a team, you are ultimately super connected.
oh yeah,
You need to work as a team.
yeah.
If you and I are on the podcast and you're having your own little thoughts and I'm having my own little thoughts,
This is his work.
it doesn't work, man. Right? There
Yeah,
needs to be interplay. There
yeah.
needs to be that connection.
And also, like for instance, so there's a cook in back. Her name's Riri, and she's like she can be labeled as a hothead sometimes. And in the past, when she was working there, she's like made some of the girls cry and like gotten very aggravated and whatnot. But I have come into it and like approached her from like a very compassionate standpoint and connecting. And like I say jokes to her all the time. I make her laugh all the time. Like we joke about my head, right? She calls me bald head. She'll pop my head like a basketball. Like we do all the things. Like I'll make her joke, but then when it comes time for her to like have a serious request or something, like she can come to me and say like, "Hey, I need this from you,"
Yeah.
and there's like respect in it. It's
Yeah.
not her coming and yelling at me and just being like mean about it.
Yeah.
There's, I've separated that problem because I heard about it. And I was like, okay, I'm aware that like I need to, connect with this person and make sure that that's like there's a level of respect and it's not a problem. And
Yeah.
I've done so.
Yeah. No, oh man. God, so many things. But one of my favorite things in school, and this happens from the high school, middle school, and the primary school now, is people realize that respect is really important to me, and then also like they won't hear me swear in the school, right? And so they know that language is important to me,
Mm.
and middle school boys just do not care like what they say, and they're kind of like testing it out and just being well, even the primary school kids,
Yeah,
right?
don't put me. I swear too much.
Yeah. But one of my favorite things in the world is when kids are dysregulated and they're just in there and they're just like cursing up a storm, and then I walk into the room and they're like they're ready to go off, and then they change the language to like, ah, heck. And it's just like, thanks, buddy.
There's a level of respect.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Like that. And to me, that's ultimate, right? That
Mm,
like that is
interesting.
yeah, that's the connection. And to me, that's leadership where you set the boundaries, you know what's expected,
Yep.
you know what I appreciate, you know what I'm going to give to you. Like I'm gonna get you back to where you need to get to,
Mhm.
but you're also going to work with me and like that just that every single time that makes me smile. And and it's usually the boys, although some girls as well, but the boys just look at me and I look at them and there's an exchange of like eye contact and then they change the language and it's just like, thank you.
Mm,
I appreciate you.
nice. Well, that's not to say that you can only impact your sphere of influence by being a leader. There's ways to quietly do it, like Hylan was saying. Like he doesn't jump up and go like, "Hey, everybody, listen to me." It's more of like from the back of the room,
Yeah.
but you care. You try to connect with people. I think that's one of the biggest parts. Is like if you want to influence a sphere or anyone, it's about connecting and honesty.
Well, and for me too, I I wish that I would have had these thoughts a little bit sooner, right? But that's the magic of this whole thing. But I also think a way for me to lead is to make sure that others feel that they have a voice, that they feel that they are powerful,
Yeah.
that they can have the influence that they see me exert
Hmm.
and they say, "Oh, yeah, I can step up and say those things too.
Yeah.
I can say no. I can be like, nope, that's not my job. Whatever it is, right? Like whatever kind of power they want to exert. But I think that's really important for me too, and that's a way that I kind of lead from the back of the room is just giving others the same sense of ability to affect change that I feel.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Well, gang, we appreciate you watching and tuning in for this episode. If you ever want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at nopeopepod@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on what we talked about, how you're a leader in your own life, or how you impact your sphere of influence. Yeah,
or how you would like to become a leader, right?
yeah,
I think so many people feel disempowered
yeah,
right now, and let's change that.
yeah,
Let's begin to feel a sense of I can make a difference. I can lead the life that I want to lead. Right?
yeah,
I'm not governed by what's happening in politics and the world and my state government and my employer and this and that. Like I have the ability to lead
yeah.
the life that I want to lead. I have
Absolutely.
the ability to create the impacts in the sphere of influence that I
Yeah.
want to create.
Go out and do it, gang. And with that, we'll see you in the next one.